This year's Super Bowl with the Chiefs against the Eagles, Rihanna was the halftime entertainment, and a big deal was made afterwards. Really, kind of in the photography kind of arena, people talking about the whole working for exposure thing and how the halftime entertainment for the Super Bowl apparently, and I honestly didn't realize this or pay attention because it's not really something I follow, but apparently those people quite often work for free. And what they basically get is the exposure, which could result in having more fans, having people go out and buy more albums. They could realistically probably make millions of dollars just by performing that halftime show. But the whole question kind of came up as to, at what point do you stop working for exposure? So let me offer you my advice, having been doing photography for quite some time, back when it was film, back when there weren't as many photographers as there are today, and how getting someone to trust you to actually shoot their wedding or take pictures for them or shoot an event and do those types of things, where it is actually there's a lot on the line for those people to actually trust someone who maybe doesn't have the experience. So let me discuss kind of my take on what working for exposure really means and kind of where you should draw the line with that. First and foremost, working for exposure is actually very important. Everyone has to do that at some point, whether it be while you're in high school, whether it be you get out of high school or you're a 40-something-year-old and you're trying to start your business, or really trying to grow your audience or anything like that. Working for exposure is actually kind of something you can't avoid. However, I will say this. I don't agree with working for exposure exclusively, which means I think if you work for exposure, that's great, but I still think everybody's time should be paid. Whether they get paid a small fee, it's still somebody's time doing it. It's still somebody's expertise, even up to that point. There's a lot of effort that goes into shooting anything, where I think there should still be some type of compensation given to somebody. Now, if they choose to do it voluntarily because they support a cause, or they like the product, or it's just something that's really important to them and they're passionate about it, let them make that decision. But expecting someone to be paid with exposure and not get paid anything in addition is actually something that all of us photographers and all of us artists and whatever you consider yourself should stop allowing people to get away with. Companies, organizations, they will always get away with paying people with entirely exposure as long as someone is willing to keep taking those jobs and allowing that to happen. And if we all step up and we be, yeah, I don't mind doing this, but I do need to charge a little bit of money for it. So how about maybe even $50? Just a little bit to make it worth your time. And I promise you, when you get that little bit of compensation for the very first time, you start to have this greater sense of pride. You feel more accomplished, and you also put a lot more effort into it because someone is literally paying you for it. Exposure does not pay you anything. Most people, as you probably learned through Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, they quite often don't hire you just because they see your work somewhere else. It's all referral based anymore. Reputation and those types of things. And now, why exposure could possibly help you, if they put it on your shoulders to expose yourself and show that you did that, well, what are you really getting out of that? Because you can show up to almost any event you want, take some pictures, and then turn around and publish those and give yourself some free exposure. So I do encourage you, do exposure early on. You may even do it when you transition into another type of photography or another type of video or anything like that. But doing it entirely for exposure, I really encourage you, don't do that. Not only to protect yourself, but also to protect the industry as a whole. Now, that's obviously just my opinion, but I really don't think people should be doing that, because you can't pay your gas company with exposure. You can't pay the electric company, the water bill. None of those entities will allow you to pay them with exposure, because we could tell that all day long. Like, hey, power company, I don't have any money this month, but I'll be sure to give you some love on Facebook. It's just not realistic that we do that. We don't expect that with any other type of industries, really, for the most part. There are internships that can be free. I get that. I'm personally still kind of against free internships. I still think they should be paying somebody at least minimum wage to do something. But it is what it is, and I encourage you to be very careful with how you approach that. Don't cheapen yourself, but also don't cheapen the profession that you're a part of. So if you are out there and you're trying to grow your audience, you're trying to get into photography, the exposure you should be doing is reaching out to people and offering them to do maybe some free photos for them. You got a good friend who needs some new family pictures, maybe go to them and say, hey, I'll take some pictures for you for free. But let that be on you. Don't let that be somebody else who wants to take advantage of your good nature or your desperation by not paying you to do that. So for Rihanna doing that for free, that is what it is, I guess, with the NFL and how they do that. And they wouldn't do it if they didn't feel like they was going to get some type of compensation in the end. All kind of endorsements. She got an amazing amount of support as a result of that when everybody found out that she was pregnant and stuff. So she probably came out on top. Now, does that pay for the rest of the members of her band, and does it have any longevity to it? I don't really know. But something like the NFL, they could obviously afford to do it, but they also would then be on the hook to probably get whoever is the biggest name in the industry at that particular moment. They'd have a lot of pressure. So I kind of like the idea of someone vying to be able to do that, but still at the same time, everybody deserves to have some form of compensation for the effort that they put into stuff. You don't pay somebody at a drive-through less money because it's his first day instead of his 10th day. Now, granted, yeah, you get raises and stuff over time, but realistically, though, you don't tell them it's free right up until you're ready to start paying someone. So we shouldn't really do that for our industry either. So take with this what you will. Try to keep this short to the point, but don't burn yourself out with all that free stuff, because once you do free, and I'll take this from my own personal experience, once you do so much free, so many people and even organizations and businesses start to expect that. And then when you actually all of a sudden say it's not free anymore, that you need to charge an amount, they stop calling you. There is very little return on loyalty in a lot of arenas. I hate to say that because I'm still that big empath guy who's always wanting to see another business succeed. And so I tend to not send some invoices sometimes just to try to help them out. But then, you see that someone else gets the paying gig. So you got to kind of understand that you're putting yourself at risk by doing something for free on your own that won't necessarily pay off for you in the end. So take care of yourself, keep shooting, and I will see you guys in the next video.